One of the things that has arisen for me as I contemplate this theme of divine child is the robust contribution that humanity is giving us in the study of the body, neuroscience, physiology, quantum physics, uh, psychoimmunology. There are so many fields that are creating bridges for us in the understanding of who and what we are beyond the mechanical view of who and what we are. And today we're going to focus on the pineal gland. We're actually going to spend a little more time than just today, though I'm not sure if I'll do it sequentially or drop it in here and there. And why would I start there? Edgar Cayce said once, keep the pineal gland active and alive, and you will never grow old. You will always be young. That's a remarkable statement for a small gland that's situated very small in the middle of our head, that focusing on that one gland could be the place wherein we remain youthful. And he, of course, means that youthful in the broadest sense, in the wholest sense of that word, the pineal gland. In some traditions, it's called the Crystal Palace. In others, the Cave of Brahma. In others, it's considered the place where the experience of that beyond the physical actually originates, actually takes place, so that when we do move into these timeless aspects of our being, and in that we discover our divinity and embody our innocence, that's the place that it's actually happening, that is the sometimes called third eye, sometimes called beginning of the transpersonal point. We've worked with it as one of the chakra points, Ajna chakra. And with that, then, it really deserves an introduction in the beginning part of our series for us to reflect upon and consider. All right, so I'm going to share with you a couple pictures, and I took these pictures so that you could see the origin of the talk because it's free on YouTube and you can find it on YouTube. I wanted you to know I was actually a speaker at this conference when he was here, and he's just brilliant. All right, so take a look here, and you will see then that the cavities of the brain, the blue parts are ventricles, and ventricles are the place where there is fluid. And it is the place where cerebral spinal fluid flows. And cerebral spinal fluid, as we've understood, actually bathes the brain, bathes the spinal cord. It is the refreshing fluid that opens us up to the potentiality of our being, or simply clears us of toxins. So we've got that set up in our brain, and you can see that the fluid, interestingly, now it goes around the entire brain, but it's definitely heightened and concentrated on the ventricles, on the inside part of the brain. Right now, I want to share the next picture with you to situate. Okay. And I'm still in Kentucky, so you'll have to bear with the activity that's going on in other rooms. So, as it's stated here by this wonderful man, Mauro Zaparia, the nervous system is floating in and being bathed by, so it's supported. When you think of, I always think of like Mother Mary and the images of her cloak holding the whole world, or divine feminine energy that holds and sustains all. The cerebral spinal fluid is like that for us in our nervous system. So you can see by the red, it's all through that system. And going on here to get you the next slide. And this, I think, is the bridge that will go into understanding the nature of our meditation. So you can see by this diagram that an embryo, right? That's the little black part there, the embryo, okay, is being bathed in amniotic fluid and yolk sac fluid. You see on both sides, and you see the tiny little heart, that little white dot there. And then you've got chorionic fluid as well. So when we are conceived, we are literally floating, not just in fluid in the larger sense, but actually our very development is taking place in fluid ways. And the larger fluid of coming into being, which is amniotic fluid, cavity and fluid, that part ends up being the place wherein our cerebral spinal fluid first originates. But what's remarkable here is you can trace back to where the fluid becomes a receiving amniotic fluid, where we're an embryo, we're conceived and we're receiving. But not long after, our own cerebral spinal fluid that has its own markers. So we're influenced by the fluid in the womb, but the cerebral spinal fluid develops its own markers that creates you to be the individual that you are, the individual expression. Let's take a look at one more picture. All right. And so what happens here is you can see, I know this is a bit abstract, but look at that top diagram in the blue. It's a neural plate, so it's how you're developing. And you see the amniotic fluid this is a cross section, so it's all around. But what begins to happen is the neural plate begins to fold and differentiate. And then the amniotic fluid ends up being outside the epidermis on the bottom, and the cerebral spinal fluid is held in your own neural tube, so that you're not a victim to anything that's in the amniotic fluid. So even though you're influenced by, right, we are influenced by our culture, by our blood lineage, by past lives, by the collective consciousness, there is also a way that as that cerebral spinal fluid is encased in the neural plate, you are also wholly independent. And that cerebral spinal fluid is not your connection to a mom or to a lineage or to all the ancestors. That is the connection to the divinity of your being. So pineal gland meditations have become very popular for that reason. They connect us back into that direct line physiologically. Now, anytime we're meditating, we do that just by virtue of meditating. When we enter into the unknown of our being, the pineal gland activates, and like Edgar Cayce points out, it becomes very active, and becoming very active, what happens is we touch in on the divine youthfulness of our being and the adult patterns that can constrain us and lock us in, like I brought up last night. They're not upon us. They are not influencing us. Are they part of our chemistry? Yes, they are there, but they are not impacting us. So that happens with any type of practice that opens you to the spaciousness of your being. But pineal gland meditations specifically work with developing the organ. And if you were to study Joe Dispenza's work, you will find that there are crystals on the pineal gland. And those crystals are like, it's like alchemy. They're activators. And you can actually increase the crystal constellation of your pineal gland by doing meditations that focus on that. Hence the ancient name of it being the Crystal Palace. And it is the way that we step into the I am of our being. We discover again the divinity of, it's the fountain of youth, isn't it? The divinity of the youthfulness that is part of our nature, that we sometimes get shrouded on our own enculturation process. So we're going to return to this topic a little bit more deeply because it's so rich. And I want these body understandings to come into this series along with the deep philosophical and theological inquiry that we do. So today what we're going to do is we're going to do a version of a pineal gland meditation. And again, what we're doing here is we are amplifying the pineal gland. We're giving focus to it like you would go to a gym and you would work out your arms and you would begin to see your biceps a little bit. We are working the pineal gland so that it can work in our benefit even more. All right. And so you can take a look and you can Google. I kept the names of the conference SAND. It's a great conference. It doesn't exist anymore. I was a speaker at one of the last ones before the lockdown, and they've gone a different route. They're still doing great work online, but they stopped the in-person conference. You can look at his full video there. He gives a keynote, and then he gives a breakout session as well if you'd like to learn more. But all that information is there. And then you can learn more about him and his research. He's a Harvard professor who has studied craniosacral, Reiki, and a number of other modalities that open up to the subtle energy of our consciousness and being. All right, little whirlwind course, little did you know. All right, so I invite you to close your eyes. And to bring your focus to your breath. Research has shown that breath is one of the most powerful ways to amplify the pineal gland. There are many other ways as well, but it's one of the most accessible and powerful ways. So bring your focus to your breath. And as much as you can, let yourself breathe more and more large, bigger and bigger. See if you can engage in full body breathing as much as possible, which allows the inhale to expand the body outward in every direction, and the exhale contracting back to that point from which you originate. Expanding and contracting. Now bring the focus down to the base of the spine. This is something we've done frequently, but we're going to do it in a unique way. And you're going to, on the inhale, draw the breath up the spine and focus it, moving, pressing upon or moving into the pineal gland. So you can focus it, imagine, right into the center of your brain cavity. Intuitively do it or imaginatively do it. And then exhale, releasing. And inhaling up to the pineal gland and exhaling, releasing. And now what we're going to do is we are going to very slowly contract, whether you are able to do it physically or you have to imagine doing it. All the muscles all along the spine slowly moving up, so that what we'll do is we'll force the cerebral spinal fluid up to flood the pineal gland. But we're going to start with the base of the spine. Just contract the base of the spine and imagine or envision that you're like squeezing a tube of toothpaste from the bottom and you're forcing the toothpaste up into the abdomen. And we're going to breathe here, holding the base of the spine. And contracting then into the abdomen. So base and abdomen, squeezing that toothpaste a little further along the bottom and pushing the toothpaste up. The cerebral spinal fluid is now up into the diaphragm area. And on every inhale, we're contracting a bit more. Exhale, hold it, but no need to try to contract. And contracting the diaphragm then again, pushing the cerebral spinal fluid up into the chest, the heart and lung area. Draining the lower parts of the spine that are bathed in the cerebral spinal, allowing it just to rotate from the chest up into the head and back down to the chest. Breathing. And contracting around the spinal column in the chest and the upper torso. Again, we're still breathing, and now we're pushing the cerebral spinal fluid, contracting the entire torso and moving it up into the throat, up into the head. Imagine this fluid largely moving from the throat to the head, back to the throat, throat to the pineal gland, back to the throat. And contracting into the throat and focusing everything going to the pineal gland. You're contracting all the way up the body, breathing, and imagine or sense that fluid just flooding the pineal gland. And exhaling, relax, and doing it again, full body. Inhaling up all the way to the pineal gland. And exhaling, relax. Inhaling, full contraction. Holding into the pineal gland, holding as long as you can, no breath. And relax. And continuing on, doing it the same way, contracting the whole body up into the pineal gland, letting the breath and the cerebral fluid go right there, holding. And relaxing. And again, moving up Holding. And relaxing. And again. And relaxing. And continue full body contraction. Envision, sense that cerebrospinal fluid moving, washing up into the pineal gland, amplifying its capacity. And relaxing. And again, go at your own pace, but hold as long as you can. And again, continue. Get at your own pace. And again. Keep it up. Keep intentionalizing. Allow this part of your body that wants to flood the pineal gland, assist it with your attention and intention. And release. And again. Continue. Contracting through the whole body, all the way up to this crystal palace. Release. And again, continue. 3 more breaths at your own pace. And keeping your eyes closed, enjoy and notice what has moved and shifted within you. And when you're ready, open your eyes. Great to be with you, my friends. Enjoy your day.